You're listening to Superpowers of the Soul on the Superpower Up Podcast, the show that elevates superpowers to the divine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jennifer Uzzio, superpower expert and founder of Soul Language. And this is Superpowers of the Soul. And today I'm here with Wes Michell. And I'm so excited because we're talking about self-motivation to write your dreams. Hello, Wes.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. So I always like to start this kind of conversation with getting everyone on the same page and getting to know you a little. So we're kind of concerned in a good way about superpowers over here. So what would you consider the superpower of your soul?
I think overall, I'm a creator, and I always have been, and so I have your book, which is fabulous, by the way, Soul Language. And, I went through it and I pulled some stuff out and checked it out. And I think that's my thing. Since I was a little girl, my earliest memories were wanting to create and write books and stuff like that. I love movies. I've always been fascinated by that process. So I think being able to tell a story and have people walk away thinking about what you did, I think that's me.
Yeah, I think that's, of course, it's an ancient art to tell a story and to share with individuals something that's extremely personal and yet universal. And I think when people hear those explanations and those stories, they understand that they're, that individualization of the one. They feel like, oh, wait, there is a place, and they get to experience something from the observer eye. So I love that superpower.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, we talk a lot about sacred purpose here, and I think so often people think about their sacred purpose as doing and about other people, but sacred purpose is really about what you're here to profoundly experience and then offer that experience to others. So with that definition, what do you consider your sacred purpose?
I have, like, on my website, I say inspire, strengthen, lead. And I just feel like that's like explains me, and not in the sense that I'm going to tell you how things should be, or this is my way and this is how it is, but more that I think I like the idea of letting people find what's inside them. And I love your superpower idea, because I do believe everyone has their gift or their superpower or whatever you want to say, and it's just a matter of figuring out what it is. And I think we live sometimes in a way that everything around us is sort of, burying that. And when you can find it and get it out and accept it, your whole world changes.
Agreed. So, what has been a common theme your soul or your essential nature has shared with you over your journey?
Persistence, not stopping even when you think like you just, you're done. I think that's kind of the big one, and persistence and being kind. I really believe no matter how you look at anything in life, being kind is it, period. And so those two things for me are sort of what my themes have been, I think.
So as you're going and you're creating and you're being kind, how is that, what is the sense of joy that you get out of being that sacred power?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
What do I get out of it? I guess it just makes me feel good. Like, it makes my heart feel good, and I have to say, I think I'm discovering I'm definitely some kind of like an empath type person. And I feel, I'm a vegan. My respect for life, having become vegan, is like through the roof in ways that I never ever thought would ever happen to me. So I always have these feelings for other people, and I just always want everybody to be happy, which is not an easy thing. And and if I'm at odds with someone, or if I see people at odds, I want to make it so that doesn't happen anymore. And that's not always successful, but if I can be positive and help be a positive influence, then I try to do that.
I love that. Yeah, being an empath and wanting everyone to be happy is often really debilitating sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And especially since you write fiction in a sense, but I think, it's spiritual fiction. I think there's a lot of knowledge in that fiction. And, for people that kind of understand and experience, that must be a little kind of hard, wanting everyone to be happy as, you're writing this fiction and everyone's not always happy. And there are challenges. And, for that to kind of be empathic on that wavelength must be, interesting for you.
It is. It's a little bit torture for me sometimes, because when I wrote Under the Veil, it's a very dark book and bad things happen to some of the characters. And when I was writing that, I literally sometimes had to write the action that was taking place over and over again. Like I would write it and delete it and write it and delete it and write it and delete it. Because I even though it's a character, it's fiction, I was still having a problem, making this negative thing happen to them. But I realized, if you're going to write a book that you want people to think about when they're done writing it, you have to go for it. So it's either going to be what you want it to be, or you can sort of conform to what you want to make you happy, but it's not going to be the same book. In my book, I wanted it to have a point, and that worked out. But yeah, it is hard. Even when it's fiction, it works. It's hard to do.
No, that's no problem. Yay! Hello, puppy.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
So, as we're doing the break here,
all right, she's done.
As we're doing the break, let people know before we break, how people can get in touch with you.
So I have a website. It's westmitchell.com, and you can contact me through there if anyone had any questions, or even with the whole publishing experience and how that works, indie publishing. But it's westmitchell.com, and there's no T in Michell. It's Michell.
Perfect. Okay, everyone, I want you to stay tuned. We will be back in 2 shakes.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Don Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Jennifer Uzzio, and I'm with Wes Mitchell, and we're talking about self-motivation to write your dreams. And you have a really interesting story about kind of your writing career and how you really had to kind of really sit yourself down and have a come to, West meeting about motivating and writing. Can you share a little bit about that story with us?
Yeah, I've always wanted to be a writer, and I knew that. And then I started working in entertainment and television. And, as we all experience, life takes us in different directions. And then I had met people who were writers, and they, told me how I needed to be if I was going to be a writer, and I didn't fit the mold. So a lot of times I was like, oh, I guess I'm not a writer. I'll just do something else instead. But meanwhile, I continued to write. I've written a lot of screenplays just to write them. Then I started writing books, and I've always been writing. And it wasn't until, probably in the last 10 years or so that I realized, people go about things in their own way. And when I heard about other people who became successful, sort of like, for me, when I write, I don't sit in front of a computer and write. I develop everything in my head, the dialogue, the action, what I'm seeing. And I was always told, like, that's not how writers work. And then I wound up watching, I think it was like a documentary on Beethoven or something. It said how, like, that's how he was. He developed everything in his head. And then when he had it, he sat down and he wrote it on paper. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's me, So I was like, wait, I am a writer. I've been writing my whole life nonstop. It's all in my head. And to sit down and put it on paper, that's just a couple hours worth of work, So, and that's kind of been my process. And I got to a point about, back in 2015, I think it was, or 14. And I finally said to myself, you're either going to do this now or you're going to shut up and get on with your life and do something else, because now's the time. And that's what I did. I got to a point where I was like, this is it. It's time now or never. So do it. And I did.
I love that. So, I think kind of to be an entrepreneur, to be a writer, to be creative, I think, there has to be a little bit of motivation. And so what is one of your tips, or what is one of the things that you do to self-motivate yourself to kind of sit down and get it out of your head and put it down into paper?
For me, it's kind of a natural thing. I mean, a bruise and a bruise, I'm like a volcano.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can't take it anymore, I have to sit down and write it out. And the only thing is, though, there are distractions in life that happen, and you can easily use that as an excuse to not do what you really want to be doing. And I did have to, kind of shut down and pull back and say, if you're going to focus on yourself and make this happen, you need to do that, and I came to terms with myself. And where did I find the motivation? I think I was just tired of not doing what I wanted to be doing. I think I just got to a point where I said, I need to write this book, and I need to write more books, and I need to keep moving ahead with what I want to do. And so, I don't know, it was just me kicking myself in the pants, I guess.
So self-motivation from the warrior point of view.
Yeah. Like, shut up and do it. That was it. That was in my head. That was what I heard. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it.
So tell us a little bit about your book and why the characters are who they are. And, it's it's not like you've had this experience of this book, meaning you didn't go through this personal experience, but it's so real and it's so intimate as if you did. So tell us a little bit about, the book and the kind of the plot of the book.
Under the Veils of Romantic Suspense, and it's about a young woman from New York who's kidnapped and taken to a foreign country to marry the prince. And it has to do with, the backstory has to do with a lot of the themes of oppression, stuff that women have gone through over the years. And it's definitely a romance. I mean, if you want a good romance, you will fall in love. You'll definitely fall in love with the main character and characters. But there's also a lot of dark themes about, women being taken and forced into lives that they don't want to have, among many other dark themes that women have dealt with, like sex trafficking and all that kind of stuff. So it's a fast read, in the sense that I write my books almost like they're movies. So I want people, once they start, to be so engaged that they don't stop until it's over. And you will get, once you start reading it, it'll suck you in, and then you just keep going.
And I love that. And, even the kind of marrying a prince, right? The little girl's dream to marry a prince, that
right.
itself has a little darkness to it.
Right. And that's one of the things one of the reasons I wanted to do it that way is, we're always fed like, everybody wants to be a princess, and we all want to dress up and be pretty and all that, and which is fine. But the reality is, most of those princesses through history were basically like forced into marriages to like horrible people, and not for nothing, they were raped, because it wasn't like, wow, they did it because their dad made them, or their son or their brother made them, or whatever. So I was kind of like, if you're going to feed all these young girls, myself included, when I was a young girl, I wanted to, everybody wants to be a princess. If you're going to feed them that idea, then why don't you give them the reality of it as well? Because the reality is, those women through history probably suffered a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because you have a nice dress and you have food doesn't mean like your life is, perfect. And there was politics involved and all that. So that idea is really, it's sort of like taking the whole idea of being a princess. And there's a scene in the book where she comes face to face, the lead character comes face to face with that idea of selling young girls this idea of being a princess, where the reality of being a princess, is not what we've been taught.
No, it's not. So if someone's listening to you today and they're really inspired to kind of start their dream, whatever that might be, what would you want them to gather from this conversation today about really, stepping into their dream and letting that creativity fly?
You can't rely on anybody else to get you there. You have to do it yourself. You can't look at other people, even if they love you dearly, to be the person who tells you to do it. You have to tell yourself. It's all about you. Your relationship, your faith with, how you see the world, God, whatever. And you have to come to terms with those two things, and you have to do it if that's what you really want to do. Don't be afraid, and you will be. because fear is a big factor in what keeps us away from doing these things. And I was scared, when I started doing all this, but once you do it, it's like, oh, I did it, and then you can do it again and you can do it again. And then other people, the amazing thing to me is how other people have responded to what I've done. And they'll say, like, I've always wanted to do this. Just do it, just do it and see what happens, because it's all about you, and stop with the excuses. I'm a mom, I'm a this, I'm a that. Yeah, you are. And you're probably awesome. But you have to do what you want to do, because to be the best mom you can be, you're the best woman you can be, you're the best guy you can be, you're the best dad you can be, you're the best husband you can be. You have to be good to yourself. And if you fulfill yourself, then it's very easy and in a nice way you can help fulfill other people.
To give from the overflow. I love it. Yeah, I've always wanted to write a, mystery novel. And I've got started it, and it's kind of happening in my head. But if anyone comes onto my computer, there's a little note that says, who got killed? Who's the murderer? Right. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so now I have who got killed. Right. So it's really interesting how that process works, and not to put off your dreams, because there's never a good day to start. The good day is right now.
No, you'll never get that. You'll never get that. Today's the day because this, or someone's not going to come to you and say, today's the day. You have to determine that day yourself, for sure. And it doesn't have to be like, the fact that you're doing it and you're leaving those notes for yourself is great, because it'll build and it'll build and it'll build. And then when the time comes, you're going to be like, oh, now here we go. I got it. You know what I'm saying? And then it happens. So for some people, it might take some time, and that's okay. And some people might just sit down and write a whole book in, a week or whatever. Like, it's up to the individual. Don't listen to what everybody else is saying. Oh, you can't do it because of this, or you can do it because of this. Do it because of you. Just you.
Beautiful. So before I ask the last question here, let people know how to get in touch with you again.
I have a website. It's westmichell.com, WESTMICHELL. And there's information on there. I have an ongoing story called West of Windsor, which is about a family that moves to it's a fictional town. And it's about their life. So that's fun. You can check that out. My next book is coming out soon. So if you register on the website, I can send you information when that's going to come out, hopefully August. And you can contact me through there.
Beautiful. Well, we'll have to have you back on when that second book comes out. So my last question is, if you were a magnet or a postcard on your, whatever you call your higher power University Bob Cupcakes refrigerator, what would it say?
If I was a magnet or a postcard on my fridge, what would it say? Oh boy. It would have palm trees and sunshine on it for sure. And I think it would say something to the effect of, just keep going.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you so much for sharing your dream and writing your dream and being part of today's call. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And everyone, if you liked what you heard today, you can connect with me and all the other experts in the Superpower Net at superpowerexperts.com/the net. Don't forget not just to find your connection, but be your connection. Thanks a lot, and tune back in again to hear more guests talk about their soul and how they're utilizing their superpower in the world.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.